Hey there guys, this is your host Richard with another marvelous video. This time, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. Deadpool is a serial killer? As we gear up for Deadpool saving the Marvel Universe in Deadpool and Wolverine, let's look back at the time when he targeted every single character in the Marvel Universe, brutally slaughtering them. Why, you ask? Well, for a comprehensive answer to this why, let's take you through the mysterious journey that began in the 2012 comic series Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe by Cullen Bunn and illustrated by Dalibor Taljic, continuing in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe again, culminating in Deadpool Kills Deadpool. Let's begin, shall we? How it started. The Watcher introduces himself as a timeless observer, traversing multiple universes and witnessing their events. He broods that while some universes end peacefully and pave the way for a new one, some universes are rife with unspeakable horrors and unending suffering. The Watcher calls on us to bear witness to the beginning of the end of one such universe. In this universe, the rise of superheroes began with the Fantastic Four, and it looks like their fall is gonna begin with them too. Susan Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, is clutching a dying Dr. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, in her arms. She's in complete shock and refuses to believe he's dying, with his elasticated body completely melted and stretched mercilessly across the room in what can only be described as complete carnage. His face is slowly deforming as he struggles to cling on to life. With his dying breath, he asks Sue to run to safety and is unable to form full sentences as he tries to tell her the assailant stole something. Sue sadly admits that Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, is dead and has been reduced to a pile of stones and ash, and she refuses to leave Richard's side. She suddenly remembers her children, as Richards assures her that they were safely transported to the negative zone, but the portal was damaged and they can't come back. With this, he takes his dying breath. Sue lets tears roll down her cheek and proceeds to close Richards' eyes in a gesture of pure love and respect. Angered and grief-stricken, Sue hears an explosion and fears her brother Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, is in danger. She runs to check and takes on her invisible form. What she sees before her is indescribable beyond measure. A ship has crashed and is engulfed in raging flames as a bleeding and battered Johnny tries to crawl out of the flames. Deadpool, aka Wade Winston Wilson, appears, perched on the crashed ship, and compliments Johnny on his tenacity during their fight. Holding a katana to his neck, Deadpool tells Johnny that the severe burns he sustained are proof of Johnny's fighting skills and proceeds to slice his throat right in front of Sue, who's invisible. The blood spatters onto Sue, giving her away as Deadpool quips that the color red suits her. He says he's happy she came to him, and before he can attack, Sue uses one of her force fields to pop his head. As she's controlling the force field, she tells Deadpool that she's not sure why he targeted the Fantastic Four, wondering whether he was working for one of their enemies or had a personal vendetta against the superhero team, but is sure to stop the carnage once and for all as Deadpool's head explodes. He falls to the ground as a sullen Sue turns around with her back to Deadpool. If only it were that easy to kill Deadpool. He promptly gets up, his head still regenerating as he stabs her in the back, lecturing her about her failure to learn from her years of being a superhero to never face away from a vicious enemy. The Watcher resumes his narration as the Fantastic Four, the very first superheroes of an age of marvels, have been slain. Confused as to why Deadpool would do this? Well, let's go back in time to the Ravenscroft Asylum, a rehabilitation center for the mentally ill where Dr. Benjamin Brighton came up with new and improved methods of treatment to provide relief and reintroduce the patients of his facility who were mostly supervillains to a life of peace. The reality, of course, was very different, as in between screams for release, open threats to the life of the doctor, and pleas for mercy and humanity, a nurse informed Dr. Brighton about the arrival of a new patient. Deadpool is wheeled in on a gurney as Professor X, Storm, Cyclops, and Wolverine accompanied him. At first, Deadpool thought it was a prank and asked to be let go so that he could get his turn in and tie another X-Man down to the gurney. Wolverine expressed his apprehensions about the Institute to Professor X, agreeing that Deadpool might have a few screws loose in his brain, but admitting him into a mental institution might not be the right move. Professor X shut Wolverine down, saying the matter was not to be discussed anymore, as the help that Deadpool needed was beyond the Professor's means to provide. He hoped that the asylum would help him. Professor X shook Dr. Brighton's hands, as the doctor assured him he'd been quite successful in fixing up human beings like Wade with his unconventional methods. The Professor was worried about Dr. Brighton underestimating Wade, as he told him about his own methods failing and that Deadpool is one of a kind. Right on cue, Deadpool broke down as he cried out about his bad history with institutions, his marriage failures, his sorry state of finances, and committing arson at the Smithsonian Institution. Dr. Brighton realizes Deadpool is a special needs patient and assures the X-Men that he'd personally oversee Deadpool's treatment. As two assistants practically forced Deadpool into the doctor's chambers, he put up quite a fight and was still in costume with an added straitjacket. He He quipped about the straitjacket being a fashion faux pas and internally commented on its color, comparing it to vomit. Dr. Brighton ordered the assistants to leave Deadpool with him as he asked the Crimson Comedian to have a seat. Deadpool joked that he thought the doctor wanted to be his friend. He was stoked about scoring an individual therapy session with the doctor and ditched to talk about himself. If you've liked the video and our efforts up until now, well, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. They may be 2 small clicks for you, but they help us in marvelous ways. And now, well, let's continue. Vowing to come up with something new instead of the same old sob story of a poor and abusive childhood, Deadpool told the doctor how he was born a girl to a coal miner and was never breastfed as a child by his mother or any of the mothers in his neighborhood. He told the doctor to take notes, as he'd be missing out. Dr. Brighton asked him whether he was a skilled assassin with a healing factor that doesn't let him die. The doctor got up from his chair as Deadpool wondered whether he could actually die. The doctor then revealed his secret identity, Psycho Man, and questioned Deadpool's skills, admonishing him for his inability to focus and ability to yammer on. He told Deadpool he had no intention of helping him and was brainwashing him and the other patients in the institution to carry out his evil plans. Just as the doctor thought Deadpool had been converted to his cause, the tables turned. And how? Deadpool attacked the doctor as he tried in vain to get Deadpool to obey him. The voices in Deadpool's head quietened and were replaced by a mysterious new voice that greeted him by his first name. He freed his hands from the straitjacket and proceeded to separate the miniature Psycho Man from his humanoid disguise. Deadpool then proceeded to smash the miniature Psycho Man on his medical release forms using his smeared remains as a stamp of approval for his release. The mysterious voice commended Deadpool on a job well done. As Deadpool asked who the voice belonged to, the voice told him they knew each other and that Deadpool was expecting him. He then ordered Deadpool to complete the job. Deadpool walked through the facility's holding cells as the other patients begged to be freed and offered him deals in exchange for their releases. Listening to the voice, Deadpool refuses their deal, and as he was pouring flammable liquid on the facility staff, he told the other patients he was actually saving them from a grim future. He walked away as the entire asylum went up in smoke and asked the mysterious voice where the old voices went. The new voice cryptically told him he didn't need them anymore and that he was hungry. The Watcher resumes his narration as we're drawn back to the present. He tells us the different outcomes and possibilities of Psycho Man's plan in the various universes, and as he's talking about the universe he's currently in, a universe where Psycho Man's actions inadvertently created a monster, he's suddenly struck down as a surge of electricity courses through his body. The Watcher cowers to the ground as he tries to gauge the situation. Deadpool appears again and tells him he found a gizmo that Mr. Fantastic created to subdue interdimensional beings like the Watcher. The Watcher tells Deadpool he didn't interfere. Before he completes his question, Deadpool tells him he doesn't see the world normally because he's not normal. He holds a katana to the Watcher's head and asks him who he'd been addressing all this while. A grotesque Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, not to quip or make a joke, and stares at us, the readers, with a blood-curdling gaze. With a swing of his katana, he beheads the Watcher as he says that Peeping Tom should pay attention to the devastation of the universe. Kill per view. Trish Tilby's reporting the news of the mindless killing rampage that Deadpool has gone on, mercilessly killing supervillains and superheroes alike with no apparent motive. Among the dead are the Fantastic Four, some members of the Avengers, and the X-Men. The visual of a roasted Howard the Duck splatters across the screen. As she's reporting, she has a very disturbing realization about Hank McCoy, aka Beast, who's one of the X-Men and breaks down on national television. She composes herself and finishes the bulletin with a question. Can Deadpool be stopped? Deadpool's battling Spider-Man as the web slinger tells him he likes him better when he was funny. During their mid-air scuffle, Deadpool sent hurtling to the ground as he crashes onto a car and is splattered across the road. Spider-Man swings down, telling Deadpool that despite his healing factor, the fall must have been painful, but unlike the innocent people he killed in cold blood, he has regenerative powers and can recoup. Spider-Man makes a big speech about how Deadpool's in luck as his principles deter him from murdering Deadpool for his heinous crimes. A regenerating Deadpool questions this and asks Spider-Man whether he thinks he'd be allowed to act out of character, even if he wished to. Spider-Man's annoyed at Deadpool for his fight banter and accuses him of stealing the moniker of Merc with a mouth from him. He also reminds Deadpool that his katanas have failed to kill Spider-Man and his threats are futile. Deadpool tells Spider-Man he's not going to use his swords as he points a gun at Spider-Man's chin and pulls the trigger. As Spider-Man falls to the ground, Deadpool looks on and with a finality says that Spider-Man is no more. He also tells Spider-Man that the villains he fought previously should have tried using a gun if they really tried to get rid of the web slinger, who had gathered to witness the fight and are shocked to see Spider-Man dead as they resolve to avenge him. Deadpool's limping through an alley, reveling in his amazing work. Well, at the least, his on-the-nose humor isn't lost. He asks the voice whom the next target is, and the voice tells him that it makes no such difference and that everyone needs to die. Deadpool mysteriously tells the voice that it is actually to know his next target. His targets have so far been unambitious, and he needs to make a big splash. As the voice tries to dissuade him, telling him that he doesn't need to seek approval anymore now that Deadpool has this new voice, Deadpool reminds him who's boss, as he tells him that the voice has always been inside him and has been eating away at his soul. The voice tries again, asking asking Deadpool to lie low and not put on an extravagant show, as that's what they want. Deadpool tells the voice that he thinks he's past that point, as they would never let him kill Spider-Man. Creating a spectacle is right up his alley, and that's why he needs to do something big. Meanwhile, the Avengers convene to discuss strategies to stop Deadpool. Luke Cage reveals Deadpool has already killed Black Panther, Tigra, Iron Fist, and possibly more. He also says that the survivors probably went into hiding, as Captain America reminds him that the Avengers never run away from danger. Spider-Woman tells Captain America that the Avengers had also never fallen like flies before, but that didn't come in the way of Deadpool murdering Spider-Man. Cap tells her that they're all grieving the loss of Spider-Man and countless others, but a plan of action is required, and soon. Wolverine chips in, saying that only two options are to die at the hands of Deadpool or kill him off. Luke sides with Wolverine, saying he wants retribution for the Iron Fist. Hawkeye chimes in, saying Deadpool has to die, irrespective of the Avengers' moral code, and that they need to figure out his next victim. Jarvis enters in a panic, informing the team that Dr. Hank Pym is nowhere to be found. Iron Man tries to gauge the situation and asks Jarvis for more information. Jarvis tells him that Dr. Pym, who was in his lab investigating missing Pym particles, is missing. Wolverine repeats the words Pym particles, and after a few sniffs realizes who Deadpool plans to kill next, the Avengers. Deadpool stole the Pym particles and snuck up to place shrunk-up bombs in the middle of the Avengers conference room. Before Cap could finish his sentence asking his team to hide, a massive explosion follows, leaving nothing but Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, Cap's vibranium shield, and Iron Man's mask behind. Holding Hank Pym's Ant-Man helmet, Deadpool stands in the middle of the carnage, enjoying the fiery rubble that descends, comparing it to rain. He picks up Iron Man's mask and quips that the only thing needed for them to assemble the next time is a broom and a dustpan. Luke Cage, who survived the explosion, interjects, revealing he's immune to bombs as his skin doesn't break easily. Deadpool tells him that he took into account the tougher guys and planted a couple of bombs in the coffee. Luke Cage blows up from the inside out, shock and helplessness etched on his face. Another Avenger, Thor, the god of thunder, survives the blast and comes after Deadpool, intent on wiping away Deadpool's very existence. Deadpool uses the remaining Pym particles to enlarge Mjolnir, and Thor is crushed under its weight. Deadpool boops Thor's nose before bidding him farewell. Standing over the carnage he caused, the voice asks Deadpool whether his itch to make a big splash has been scratched. Deadpool realizes he's not, and is apologetic for taking such drastic measures because the other heroes refused to believe him when he told them what their world was, a fictional farce made for the entertainment of an audience. The voice tells him it's time he took matters into his own hands, and since the Earth's mightiest heroes have been felled, it won't be too difficult to get rid of the other heroes. The Hulk ambushes Deadpool and rips him apart for killing his friends and enemies. Making the same mistake that Sue Storm did, Hulk assumes Deadpool's dead as he goes into a cave to rest. He reverts to his human form of Dr. Bruce Banner, making it easy for Deadpool to behead him with his katanas, sending his head flying from his body. Deadpool recounts the number of kills and is pretty satisfied with the result. Meanwhile, Aunt May, Spider-Man's aunt, calls a meeting of those closely related to the deceased heroes and decides to stop Deadpool. She offers valuables to a mysterious hitman, the taskmaster they've hired to finish off Deadpool once and for all, to avenge their loved ones. Exterminate. The Taskmaster is tracking Deadpool down, following the bloody trail he's left behind. Venom, Multiple Man, and Green Goblin are added to his kill tally as the Taskmaster shockingly realizes Deadpool hasn't even spared the Power Pack, the pre-teen group of superhero siblings. Monetary gains aside, he resolves to kill Deadpool but hasn't been able to track him down yet. Meanwhile, in a warehouse, Deadpool has held Professor Charles Xavier hostage. He splashes water on him to wake the unconscious Professor, telling him the best is yet to come and that he wants the Professor to witness the next part as the room is fitted with monitors. Professor X asks Deadpool why he's gone on a killing spree and is hurting people. Deadpool asks Professor X whether he believes the heroes and villains he's murdered in the fictional universe even felt the hurt and pain. Professor X tells him he does, as Deadpool takes out a knife and stabs Professor X in the leg, shoving the knife further into his flesh as he's forced to call out to his X-Men. The X-Men, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Cannonball, and Pixie arrive promptly, hearing the Professor's call, as Cyclops takes charge, saying the warehouse is like a maze. Before he completes his sentence strategizing the plan of action, he's hit straight in the head with a mysterious globe-like object that wraps around his head. Cyclops tries to free himself from the spherical prison as he struggles to breathe, and the rest of the X-Men try to figure out how to help him. He ends up using his powers to get it off his head. The resultant blast kills him and the other X-Men. Watching the carnage unfold right before his eyes on the screens, Professor X is shocked to see his beloved students die so mercilessly. Deadpool tells him he never really understood the Professor's need to constantly add to his roster of characters, as he quickly corrects himself, referring to them as his students. Next up is another set of Professor X's students, Colossus, Gambit, and Rogue. They're stuck in another part of the warehouse and the walls are closing in on them. Gambit's trying to stay optimistic and says that the metal-bodied Colossus can keep the walls from closing in on them long enough for them to escape. His sentence is left incomplete as the three mutants are suddenly electrocuted. Deadpool quips he's lost his security deposit on the warehouse, as it'll be a mammoth task to get the smell of burning mutants out. With an air of defeat, Professor X pleads with Deadpool as the new voice inside Wade's head tells him that Professor X is now willing to talk with him. The voice tells Deadpool that the Professor's telepathic powers have failed to infiltrate Deadpool's mind in the past. The professor hopes he can appeal to Deadpool's better nature by reading his mind, and the voice tells Deadpool that he should let the professor in. Deadpool asks the professor what he's thinking about, and monologues about how everyone dismissed him and called him crazy for seeing the world differently. Professor X tries to assure Deadpool that he's mistaken, but fails as Deadpool reasserts his stance, saying he's the only one aware of the truth about the universe. He further monologues how one subconsciously knows the answers to their problems, and that he'd ignored his subconscious up until now. Deadpool sarcastically thanks the professor for admitting him to Ravenscroft Asylum, as Psycho Man disguised as Dr. Brighton opened his eyes and his mind after experimenting on his brain. He finally acknowledges his signature fourth wall breaks, and says how the same wall has kept him and the others miserable for entertainment. Professor X has had enough, and decides to invade Deadpool's mind to stop him. He soon realizes with tears in his eyes and a nosebleed the personal hell Deadpool has been through, and everything that's on his mind. The professor turns away as Deadpool asks him why, and accosts him from shying away from the truth. Deadpool soon realizes the professor is brain dead and quips, "The truth will set you free or vegetize you at least." He then turns his attention to the remaining X-Men. Magneto's been killed with acid jelly, and Shadowcat, aka Kitty Pryde, isn't actually dead, but is permanently imprisoned in a tesseract with no escape. He then notices a regenerated Wolverine entering as Deadpool recalls the time he murdered him in the Avengers Tower. He gets ready to take on Wolverine one-on-one. As Wolverine's making his way through the warehouse, he finds a distraught Arcade calling out for help. Arcade's relieved to see Wolverine and pleads with him to release him, as Deadpool has kept him prisoner and forced him to create the traps that ruthlessly killed the X-Men. Wolverine reminds Arcade that they've been on opposing sides, and that Arcade has tried to kill him and his friends in the X-Men multiple times. He tells Arcade he's not gonna rescue him, but will end his suffering. Wolverine snaps Arcade's bow tie, and as he falls to the ground, Wolverine sniffs out something sinister. Following the smell, Wolverine discovers X-23 and Daken chained up in a chamber with fire blasters aimed at them. Deadpool enters, commenting on the nastiness of the setup, and goes on to explain how it works. Their vitals are being monitored, and every time they regenerate after being fatally burned, they're scorched again. Deadpool comments on how he'd use the same method on his own healing factor if things came to that. Moreover, he asserts that living lures work best while hunting, and who better than Wolverine to understand the intricacies of hunting. With a resounding roar, Wolverine fists up his hands, taking out his claws, and charges at Deadpool, who has on Beast's blue skin as a cloak, cosplaying a mountain hunter. He proclaims he's a samurai mountain hunter as he takes out one of his swords. Wolverine tells him that a samurai isn't defined by wielding a sword, as Deadpool attacks him with it, saying it's made of carbonadium, a metal that messes up Wolverine's healing factor. As Wolverine tries to catch his breath, Deadpool drives the sword further into his body, making the point that Wolverine refuses to die no matter what, and that his consistent miraculous recovery from the jaws of death isn't actually his healing factor at work, but his popularity that makes him difficult to kill. With a final swish, he assures Wolverine that he has plans to put an end to the popularity contest. The Taskmaster arrives at Stephen Strange's house to see Doctor Strange and Wong are brutally murdered. The library has been ransacked. The Taskmaster concludes Deadpool was searching for something as he finds a book, the pages of which have been opened to the page of the nexus of all realities, with the target drawn on in blood. The final battle. The carnage continues as a news reporter talks about seeing such horrifying sights for the first time. Everyone's frightened, not knowing who Deadpool is going to target next as they wait helplessly. Reports of violent riots breaking out among heroes and villains flood in as the reporter interrupts his broadcast to focus on superheroes and villains standing on a rooftop, voluntarily jumping to their deaths in what appears to be a suicide pact. He asks the viewers what could be the reason behind their desperate and hopeless actions. While some religious fanatics believe this is the end, others are of the opinion that their heroes and villains' pride led to their eventual downfall and that it was bound to happen. Even cynics can't deny the possibility of divine intervention in the massacre, and that it could very well be retribution on a massive scale. Meanwhile, the Punisher, aka Frank Castle, having had enough, decides to snipe out Deadpool as he makes the shot from across a building. He's determined to finish Deadpool off before he regenerates. As he reaches Deadpool's corpse, he unmasks him to see his real face, intent on looking him in the eyes while he murders him again. As he unmasks the corpse, he's shocked to find he's actually killed Puppet Master, who was wearing Deadpool's suit and has been orchestrating the mass suicides of the superheroes and villains outside on his behest. There are puppets of all superheroes and villains strewn across the room. Deadpool appears behind the Punisher, quipping that the great Frank Castle has been done in by a puppet after building a reputation of being hard to kill. He holds up the Punisher's puppet, manipulating it to hold a gun to its head, which Castle mimics and pulls the trigger after Deadpool says bang. He keels over the Puppet Master's dead body as Deadpool throws the puppet on him, apologizing for stealing his thunder as he was known for killing the heroes of the universe. Unlike Castle, however, However, Deadpool plans on taking his killing to space as he uses the Puppet Master's figurines to kill big guns like the Silver Surfer, Thanos and the Devourer of Worlds, Galactus. The Taskmaster has finally been able to track Deadpool down to a swamp that he considers worse than any other place he's been to. He agrees, however, that it would suit just fine as Deadpool's grave. The Taskmaster is done with the goose chase and is intent on making everyone forget Deadpool. The voice inside Deadpool's head says they don't want to be forgotten, but wishes they'd never been born. The Taskmaster asks Deadpool to repeat himself, as Deadpool says he didn't say anything and was waiting for the Taskmaster to confront him. It was pretty obvious to him that this would be the last battle with Deadpool. The murderer on a mission on one side and the Taskmaster, the vengeful representative of all of Deadpool's victims, on the other. The two clang their swords as they begin the fight. The Taskmaster tells Deadpool that he's gone too far and that killing Wade will be a kindness now. Deadpool says fighting is the only way, as nothing can be resolved by just talking. He further says that despite all the psychics, magicians and mind-controlling aliens he's come across, as the Taskmaster is just about to stab him, Deadpool stops his strike, telling the Taskmaster he's not done talking and that he can stab him after. Deadpool continues saying that after all those who have tried to get in his head and gauge his reasons for going on a killing spree, he hoped the Taskmaster would understand. Deadpool disarms the Taskmaster, sending his sword flying and landing in the muddy water as the Taskmaster tells Deadpool he understands and that he's always been a madman. It was only a matter of time before he went on a rampage killing everyone in the universe. Deadpool kicks the Taskmaster as he proclaims his reckoning has begun and reaches for the Taskmaster's sword. He goes on a monologue saying he was always regarded as a charming, tripper-happy goofball, but can finally see the truth now. The mindless deaths and surprising revivals only to be killed off again, the monstrous mutations, one-sided love interests, the secret wars, the secret invasions all hammer in the fact that the hero's journey is incomplete without pain. The Taskmaster yanks his shield toward Deadpool, knocking him out. Deadpool, straightening his broken jaw, asks the Taskmaster to see the truth. They're all puppets created and puppeteered for the entertainment of an audience like circus animals. Deadpool says he wants to save everyone from the never-ending cycle of canon. The Taskmaster tells Deadpool he talks too much, as the voice inside Deadpool's head tells him that the Taskmaster's started to replicate his moves. The voice tells Deadpool to let the Taskmaster mimic him, as that would open his eyes. The Taskmaster tells Deadpool to stop talking, as the voice realizes the Taskmaster can hear him. The Taskmaster confirms this as he says his incessant yapping hasn't gone unheard. Deadpool takes over, tells the Taskmaster that he could always foresee what his opponent's going to do next, as he asks him what's coming next. The Taskmaster realizes where they actually are, and Deadpool asks him to proceed with caution, as he shouldn't let his fear get the better of him. The Man-Thing appears out of nowhere, incinerating the Taskmaster, and Deadpool says that all those who know fear are burned by the Man-Thing. Deadpool then addresses the Man-Thing, feeling sorry for him as he protects everyone in their miserable, pain-filled lives. As the Man-Thing is made to witness the journey of his own terrible life on loop in different universes, Deadpool asks him what makes him get out of bed in the morning to reprise his role. He tells the Man-Thing that he's intent on freeing him and that he'd need to open the door. The Man-Thing blows himself up as the voice inside Deadpool's head says that only a monster understands the motives of another. The Man-Thing's body was both the door and the key, and that he sacrificed himself for Deadpool's cause. The voice cautions Deadpool from messing up the mission as he approaches its completion. Deadpool enters a glowing portal as he wonders whether that's the end, as the voice asserts his mission has just begun. As Deadpool traverses through the known universe, the voice reminds him that he has work to do as Deadpool expresses his dissatisfaction at not being able to simply stab the universe and get done with it and celebrate by roasting marshmallows on its fiery remains. The voice tells him that tracking down the creators is not going to be an easy task, as there's no way to tell whether they're also controlled by others, making it an endless loop. Deadpool lands on an office floor as he makes his way to the writer's room and overhears the creators of the comic deciding on an apt ending. In a brilliant fourth wall break, Deadpool looks at the readers, telling us we're next once he's finished off the writers. Illustrated. Special mention. In 1850, Deadpool faces Moby Dick, the giant whale who was one of the protagonists in Herman Melville's book of the same name. As he's thrown overboard by the whale, he recalls the circumstances leading to the uncanny encounter. After he's done with the Marvel Universe, Deadpool realizes he and the others in his universe were nothing but works of fiction. Deadpool then sets out to eliminate classic literary characters who inspired the creation of superheroes, intent on drawing out the creators of the universe and ending them, thereby freeing himself from his insufferable existence once and for all. However, Deadpool's getting exhausted as he's been killing for so long, and every time he cocks a gun at his own head to check whether he can finally end himself, he regenerates, as is the norm. Walking down the hallway, he says that while he's a disobedient fourth-wall-breaking puppet, he's still being controlled by his creator, as the mysterious voice in his head agrees with him. To help with finding the source of all creation, Deadpool gathers the most intelligent minds and is sparing their lives for the sole purpose of helping him in his murderous quest. He demands to know what they found out as he's getting impatient. The mad thinker steps forward, theorizing that while the rest of of them didn't realize that they might be fictional. Deadpool, the only one who's self-aware, can see the world for what it really is, a farce. He says that in order to truly set everyone free, he must become metacidal, as the universe keeps adjusting to Deadpool, making it difficult for him to kill variants of the same superhero or villain across the multiverse. The Mad Thinker tells him that they've uncovered a hidden metaverse, the Ideaverse, where fictional classic characters reside, hidden away from their modern adaptations. Deadpool goes to the New York Public Library to read up on the classics and figure out their connection to superheroes, but finds the task extremely boring. He decides to simply kill every literary character as he's handed a time travel device by the Mad Thinker. As Deadpool bids them farewell, the evil geniuses try to sabotage Deadpool's plans before they're brutally murdered by Herbies. Deadpool travels in time to 1610 and is almost instantly impaled by Don Quixote on horseback, who carries him like a banner while riding. Quixote is surprised as Deadpool talks with a spear pierced through his chest. Deadpool slashes out Quixote's eyeball. The two fall off the horse as Quixote pleads with God to help him resume his quest, shoots Quixote down with his gun as his steward approaches Deadpool, shockingly realizing what's happened. Deadpool asks him for his identity but realizes he doesn't care and murders him as well. He then kills Moby Dick emerging from its blowhole as Captain Ahab and his men look on, offering him assistance. He gets up on their boat and realizes that he picks up what looks like Pinocchio, dropping him to the floor. Deadpool sees the vision in Pinocchio's place and murders Ishmael in cold blood as he takes on the other sailors. Meanwhile, in London in 1895, Sherlock Holmes is on the case as he receives a mysterious device and quotes his iconic line, "The game is afoot." He plays the message that the Mad Thinker left him, asking Holmes to stop Deadpool from erasing all of existence. Back at the boat, Deadpool merrily slicing his way through the crew as Captain Ahab tries to escape. Captain Ahab suddenly changes into General Ross as Deadpool realizes his plan is working, as he can finally connect the dots between the characters in his universe and their classic inspirations. Just as is about to kill Ahab, the Nautilus intervenes, capturing Deadpool as he uses his time travel device to escape its enormous anchors. Deadpool then targets Tom Sawyer as he's painting the fence and stains the newly painted fence with the boy's blood. He then goes to Transylvania, taking on Dracula and his brides. He beheads and burns them all, and as he's walking away, he contemplates eliminating the vampires from his world. He's talking to the mysterious voice as he tells him that if he continues, he'll inevitably end himself as well, and the voice tells him that's when he'll know he's won. After another time jump, he finds himself in a forest and is confronted by Ghost Rider, who attacks him. He's shocked to see the Ghost Rider in the Ideaverse, but his illusion is soon broken as Ghost Rider changes into the Headless Horseman. Deadpool attacks him as he changes into Green Goblin again before changing back. Deadpool slices his throat, granting Brombones his wish of being the Headless Horseman. He then turns his attention to the Little Women that he realizes were the inspiration behind Black Widow, She-Hulk, Mockingbird, and Elektra, and blows up their house. While Deadpool went on killing as many literary characters as he could, Holmes assembled his own team to take on Deadpool, comprising Beowulf, Natty Bumppo, Hua Mulan, and Dr. John Watson repurposed a time-traveling device from a certain Mr. Wells. Deadpool goes on to murder Scrooge, and then kills Dr. Frankenstein after he's awakened his monster. He goes one step further by implanting a part of his brain in the monster, causing it to act unnaturally. He teams up with Frankenstein's monster to lay waste to the Ideaverse. Deadpool even kills the talking animals in the Jungle Book universe, teaming up with Shere Khan to kill Mowgli. He slices Bagheera's throat, telling him that there'll be no more stories to tell once he's done with the Ideaverse. We're then transported to the Caribbean Sea in 1754, where Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Captain Ahab team up as they realize their reality is being warped as their time periods are being merged. Nemo asks his crew to send the Nautilus out to look for survivors as two battered pirates are brought into the ship. Nemo hopes the survivors would be able to shed light on the attackers, but they soon realize it's an ambush as Deadpool, along with Frankenstein's monster, attack. The Little Mermaid tries to swim to safety, and she turns to see the ship's torpedo doors open as a missile is launched with Captain Nemo strapped to its side. The missile implodes on impact, killing both the captain and the Little Mermaid as Deadpool lets out a maniacal laugh at the fact that characters like Namor and Submariner were inspired by the Little Mermaid. Deadpool then turns the ship towards Scylla and Charybdis, intent on killing them. The killing continues, kills the three witches of Macbeth, Raven from the poem by Edgar Allan Poe, Dorian Gray, and Gregor Samsa from Kafka's Metamorphosis. Deadpool takes on the monsters Scylla and Charybdis and unravels the Greek mythology surrounding the strait. Deadpool and Frankenstein's monster then materialize in Paris in 1627 and are met by the team of four musketeers, Athos, Aramis, Porthos, and D'Artagnan, who challenge the duo. Deadpool momentarily loses his hold on reality, mumbling nonsense as he deals with the repercussions of his actions for the first time. He's brought back to reality by a musketeer. The assistance of Frankenstein's monster puts a stop on the first team of the literary world, which in turn ends the concept of teams such as the Avengers, the Defenders, or the X-Men will never come to exist. Deadpool realizes that there's someone who's trying to rain on his parade as he finally meets Sherlock Holmes and his team, who are resolved to stop Deadpool. As Beowulf takes on Frankenstein's monster, Deadpool will engage engages in a battle with Bumpo and Mulan, and Frankenstein's monster is taken down by Beowulf with assistance from Watson as Bumpo dies at the hands of Deadpool. As Deadpool tries to escape using his time travel device, Mulan chops off his hand along with the device and traps Deadpool. He notices the modified time machine that Holmes and his team arrived in, and he hops on trying to commandeer the time machine. Holmes intervenes and punches Deadpool in the face as the switch is flipped and the two travel into the nexus of the Ideaverse. As Holmes tells that he can't kill every story and the Ideaverse will heal when he's dead, Deadpool tells Holmes that he's already won and he's killed all the stories but left the ideas for people to interpret and take up as they see fit. The Ideaverse is broken and can never heal correctly, as we see a glimpse of a world where the Jungle Book ends with Baloo greedily eating up the human child he found, and young boys in a comic book holding up the 4th issue of Killustrated saying how all comic books should feature killing all characters. Deadpool falls into nothingness as Holmes sits on the time machine trying to remember the classics and struggling to keep them alive. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again. Here we go again. Let's travel to another time in a humid, dusky evening in New Orleans. As some police officers stand guard outside a bar, the windows of which are smashed in, mysterious characters discuss the possibility of removing the policemen from the streets so that they can conduct their own investigation. As one of them says they could get rid of them, but their methods will be questionable, another one tells them to let them stay as their presence is also technically illegal. One of them points out that they're the only ones interested in getting to the bottom of the mystery, while the people outside are morbidly interested to know the identity of the newly killed hero. As one of them asks the other whether they knew the victim, it's revealed that Gambit is the newest victim, as his lifeless body lies on the bar. Murmurs ripple among the characters as they theorize about the perpetrator of this heinous act, as Gambit was part of the Guild of Thieves. They wonder whether the Guild is responsible, as one of them points out that none of the other murders can be tied to them, and that the Guild's MO is more professional. With an air of finality, one of them says that the crime scene evidently points to the fact that the killer really enjoyed it. The gruesome scene is set, and the stage is prepared for a deeper, darker investigation. Simultaneously, on the enigmatic AIM Island, chaos reigns. Deadpool, the mercenary with a mouth, is engaged in a ferocious battle against AIM agents. He's flanked by his teammates from the Avengers Unity Division, Dr. Voodoo, Synapse, Quicksilver, and Rogue. They're fighting MODOK, their coordinated strikes and tactical maneuvers standing as a testament to their formidable prowess. Rogue tells Deadpool to get information from MODOK as he accepts the orders, calling her a cowgirl for her heavy southern accent. In the middle of the battle, MODOK calls the Avengers Unity Division out for not respecting the sovereignty status of AIM and calls them terrorists. The battle crescendos as Deadpool goes to confront the malevolent mastermind, MODOK. Just as Deadpool is about to deliver the fatal blow, MODOK utters a series of code words, triggering a dormant programming within Deadpool's fractured psyche. In an instant, his perception warps. His teammates transform into grotesque, brightly colored enemies. The anti-uncanny Avengers comprising Hands-Off Cowgirl, Snarky Raptor Cheetah, Dr. Voodoo Doll, and Brainwave Ninja that Deadpool thinks have been created by MODOK. Consumed by the hallucination, Deadpool slaughters his allies, oblivious to their true identities. In the real world, Synapse realizes it's Deadpool's who's been killing the heroes all along and tries to take him down. With a sigh, Deadpool agrees with her. However, a resounding scream ensues and it's pretty evident Synapse didn't survive. In the grim aftermath, a new ensemble of heroes arrives on AIM Island. Jessica Jones, Kate Bishop, Moon Knight, Cable, Misty Knight, and the Punisher survey the massacre with somber faces. They were the mysterious voices in the bar investigating Gambit's death. As Jones asks for the tally of kills, Cable counts down the 4 members of the Avengers Unity Division: Ben Grimm, Human Torch, Black Widow. Misty adds in Luke Cage's name as Jones repeats it soberly with her head hung in grief. The ground is stained with blood, and amidst the carnage, they find Deadpool's unmistakable symbol scrawled in blood on the floor. The sight is as haunting as it is incriminating. Elsewhere, Deadpool remains ensnared in his delusion. He perceives himself in a vibrant, idyllic world where he's being congratulated for taking down MODOK and being asked to join Alpha Flight. However, in reality, he languishes in the dilapidated confines of Schaefer Theatre. The room, with its peeling paint and crumbling walls, is a stark contrast to the cheerful illusion in Deadpool's mind. A phone rings, shattering the silence. On the other end is a mysterious caller who, using the same code words, manipulates Deadpool further. In his trance, Deadpool imagines Nick Fury is assigning him a crucial mission, reinforcing his delusion and further clouding his judgment. On a tranquil island in the Aegean Sea, a new crisis unfolds. Loki, Valkyrie, Hercules, Thor, Hippolyta, and Ganesha arrive, drawn by the desperate cries of mortals and the other gods. They're met with a horrifying sight. Numerous gods turn to stone, their expressions frozen in eternal terror. At the center of this petrified tableau stands Deadpool, obliviously cheerful. In his twisted reality, Deadpool believes he's at a jovial beach party with friends and the newly arrived gods have just joined in. Gleefully holds up what he perceives as a volleyball, but it is in fact Medusa's head that turns the rest of the gods to stone. One by one, as Deadpool walks into the sunset. Back at Schaefer Theatre, the team of heroes investigating AIM Island burst into Deadpool's dingy hideout. The room is a chaotic mess with papers strewn everywhere as Jessica Jones comments on the stench. lunch. They look around for clues as Jones finds the receiver off the phone, concluding that Deadpool got a phone call, probably warning him of imminent danger. Moon Knight finds files detailing the weaknesses of the superheroes and ways to take advantage of them, making it easier to kill them, further solidifying their suspicion that Deadpool is behind the gruesome murders. Amidst the clutter, Jessica Jones uncovers a message, "Help me," written on the desk under a pizza box. It's a desperate plea from a fractured mind, hinting at Deadpool's internal struggle against the forces manipulating him. Meanwhile, in a shadowy secret lair, 4 of the Marvel Universe's most notorious adversaries, Red Skull, Abomination, Magneto, and Doctor Doom, deliberate over their next move. Their malevolent plan is laid bare. They've been controlling Deadpool, using him as an unwitting pawn to eliminate their enemies as they contemplate their next target. Unfriendly Neighborhood Deadpool. The ragtag group of heroes reach New York City to investigate the newest target of Deadpool's mindless killing, Eddie Brock, aka Venom. Frank Castle examines his corpse as Cable asks the others whether they know the victim. Jessica Jones, with a wry tone, says that the man resembles Captain America if the captain went on a steady diet of junk food and alcohol. Moon Knight, noticing that the room is filled with air horns, gauges the identity of the victim. Spider-Man is merrily swinging across the city as he's suddenly ambushed by a new and improved Venom, who's now black and white, retaining its massive fanged mouth and a long tongue with the ability to wrap around objects to grab onto them. The monster bellows its intent to kill him as Spider-Man realizes it's not Venom since his spider sense didn't go off. However, he quickly notes he doesn't have the time to fight off this new enemy. Trying to escape the monster, Spider-Man is tackled through a water tower and pinned as the monster draws closer, with its tongue greedily inching towards Spider-Man. The monster taunts Spider-Man for his banter, saying that making jokes might ease his pain, but he hopes they won't. In Deadpool's hallucination, however, Black Suit Deadpool and Spider-Man arrive at the Honest Brand fruit pie eating competition, with all proceeds going to charity. They're warmly welcomed by the crowd who cheers them on. Just as they're about to start, the Blob crashes the event, declaring he'll win and keep the prize money for his selfish gains. Deadpool, encouraging Spider-Man to eat like his life depends on it, starts devouring pies himself, enthusiastically praising their deliciousness between mouthfuls. In reality, however, the monster revealed to be Venompool is consuming Spider-Man, relishing the taste of his brains. Satisfied with its revenge and his hunger now satiated, the slimy parasite detaches from Deadpool. Deadpool, in a cheeky manner, quips about out-eating the Blob with Spider-Man. As he's saying this, he looks down at Spider-Man's mutilated body and reality dawns on him. He reaches into his pocket, pulling out an air horn, and asks the slimy symbiote to leave for the sake of their old friendship. He throws the air horn to the ground as Venom leaves. With a burp, he departs to his next target. Deadpool hallucinates that he's babysitting for Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, while she and her husband Roger Gocking, aka the Porcupine, enjoy a night out, spinning tales for her infant son about his mother's triumph over Sabretooth. In actuality, Deadpool invaded her home and fatally impaled her with his katanas. The following day, the team of heroes tracking Deadpool down, comprising the Punisher, Jessica Jones, Cable, Kate Bishop, Misty Knight, and Moon Knight, converge at the scene to investigate. Bishop expresses his disdain for Deadpool for forcing a child to witness the death of his parents. Moon Knight suggests that Deadpool might not realize what he's doing and could be grappling with multiple personality disorder, evidenced by his subconscious plea for help at his hideout in Schaefer Theatre. The Punisher cynically comments that the baby will witness worse things in life, implying an early start to desensitization. This evokes anger in Jessica Jones, leading her to threaten him with physical violence. Misty Knight stresses the urgency of capturing Deadpool before he strikes again. Cable proposes splitting up and conducting their own investigation to get to Deadpool faster, but Kate Bishop warns against the dangers of going after Deadpool alone and suggests they team up. Jessica Jones agrees, saying she'll team up with anyone but the Punisher. The group divides into 2 teams, Jessica Jones with Kate Bishop, Misty Knight with Cable, and Punisher with Moon Knight. Moon Knight emphasizes the need for constant communication, hoping their efforts will yield valuable information. In a delusion, Deadpool envisions himself as a sleep agent in the futuristic year of 2099, leading him to fatally attack Miguel O'Hara. Meanwhile, Miles Morales rendezvous with Jessica Jones and Kate Bishop, curious about how they contacted him and the reason behind it. Jones discloses that a dangerous murderer is on the loose, prompting Morales to mention Captain America's advice for superheroes to keep a low profile. Jones cautions Morales about the killer's pattern of targeting individuals bearing spider symbology, as Morales' spider sense activates. A few pumpkin bombs land at his feet, causing a detonation that sends Bishop tumbling off the roof, but Jones manages to catch her mid-fall. Clad in the ragged remnants of Spider-Man's suit over his own, Deadpool confronts the wounded Morales, while perched atop a modified goblin glider with the Deadpool symbol. Lost in hallucinations, Deadpool thinks he's putting a stop to the Spider-Verse clone conspiracy conspiracy, as Deadpool and Spider-Man have merged to create Spider-Pool. He's killing all the spider clones and complains about the spider suit making him uncomfortable. Deadpool ultimately ends Morales' life. Standing amid a surreal heap of deceased spider characters, Spider-Pool reflects on his bizarre actions with a tinge of remorse. Upon discovering Morales' decapitated head on the rooftop where they'd met, Jessica witnesses Deadpool's departure on his glider and immediately contacts Misty Knight. She reveals that the situation is more dire than they realized, hinting at a sinister orchestrator behind Deadpool's murderous spree. In another location, Dr. Doom berates the Red Skull for placing trust in a madman like Deadpool, who can go off the rails at any time. The Red Skull counters that it's not trust in Deadpool, but in the grand scheme, pointing out that Deadpool's conditioning keeps him oblivious to his actions. Doom questions the loyalty of the rogues gallery assembled by the Red Skull, particularly that of Magneto's. The Red Skull defends Magneto, claiming he'll keep his animosity in check due to his visionary mindset, and dismisses the others as inconsequential as long as they follow orders. Unseen above them, Gwenpool listens in on their conversation, privately noting that Moon Knight will find her gathered intel, courtesy of the villain's classic expositional monologues, quite intriguing. Gwenpool is keenly stalking the villains who are manipulating the Merc with a mouth, gathering intel to pass on to Moon Knight. She's on the phone with Moon Knight and tells him that she's not on the case to provide unreliable information. She sends Moon Knight a picture of the villains with their backs turned. When Moon Knight asks for better pictures for proof, she bursts into the room, asking the villains to smile for the camera, while she snaps a quick picture of them. As Magneto accosts Red Skull for falsely assuring them that their hideout is absolutely safe, the Red Skull commands Victor Von Doom to capture her. Von Doom refuses, as he says he doesn't take orders from the Red Skull. The group of villains chase her, and she tells Moon Knight that he must believe her now, after seeing the picture. X-Men No More. As Gwenpool was gathering intel, Moon Knight and the Punisher are in a forest investigating Deadpool's latest scene of attack. They come across a bag of abandoned marshmallows, which prove to them that Deadpool was there. The Punisher asks Moon Knight whether he was able to get the coordinates from Gwenpool, as he's tired of being one step behind Deadpool all the time. The Punisher says Deadpool wasn't just carrying marshmallows, but must have been carrying an arsenal of weapons, as they see the Guardians of the Galaxy massacred with some of their bodies charred as a fire roars in the center. Moon Knight sullenly says the Guardians made too many trips to Earth, as the Punisher notices Deadpool has left the murder weapon behind. Resolved to take Deadpool down, Moon Knight reminds him that it was Deadpool who subconsciously asked them for help and that he could possibly be mind-controlled. At Xavier's school for little mutants, Deadpool's been tasked to plug in and power up the time platform to send the kid versions of Beast, Cyclops, Angel, Iceman and Marvel Girl back in time. Things go awry as the kids begin to feel sick and Iceman hurls his guts out. This, however, is revealed to be yet another one of Deadpool's hallucinations, as he actually ends up killing the X-Men by messing with the time machine and blasting them off to Kingdom Come. He looks at the machine's console, lamenting he must have flipped the wrong switch, as he shrugs it off, saying time travel is dangerous and should be left for birds. He further states that he doesn't blame them, given what's left, or actually not left, of the remaining X-Men. Deadpool standing in a room filled with the corpses of the fallen X-Men. He looks at Jubilee's corpse, wondering whether he caused the carnage, but notices claw marks, as the villains controlling him must have gotten to Wolverine as well, as he laments the fall of his friend. In another location, Cable teleports with Misty, who chides him for not warning people before teleporting them. As they banter with one another about where they've teleported to, Cable explains that it's a safe house that he and Wade Wilson used to use sometimes. They wander through the house hoping for a clue as to Wade's whereabouts. As Misty asks Cable what he'd do if Deadpool turned up given their history, Misty comforts him, saying she knows Cable and Deadpool were friends. As Cable says they don't have many options if confronted by the Merc with a mouth, she tells him that doesn't make it any easier on him. They hear a sound, quickly arm themselves, ready for trouble. As they move into the basement towards the sound, they see Deadpool's team, the Mercs for money, all dead except for Gorilla Man, who asks them for a glass of water and expresses his need for medical assistance. Misty asks Gorilla Man why he'd leave him alive. The primate tells them that he's cursed with immortality and that the person murdering him would turn into an ape. Cable notices Domino's corpse, commenting that it's getting easier to get revenge on Deadpool for his murderous quest. As Moon Knight and the Punisher reach the hideout of the villains, they find it cleared and deserted. As they try to look for the trigger that's making Deadpool commit the heinous crimes, they're ambushed by him. Deadpool hallucinates Moon Knight and the Punisher turning down his offer of joining him in a friendly game of basketball, as they're loyal to their false gods, Khonshu and the Punisher's gun, and they try to indoctrinate him into their respective causes or suffer the consequences. In reality, however, Deadpool attacks the heroes, who are forced to fight him. The Punisher notices that Moon Knight's trying to subdue Deadpool and asks him to move out of the way so that he has a clear shot. As Deadpool tells them that either he or the Punisher and Moon Knight are leaving the place, Moon Knight realizes that there's no saving Deadpool, and asks the Punisher to take the shot. As the Punisher pulls the trigger on the gun that Deadpool left behind after killing the Guardians of the Galaxy, he's vaporized as Moon Knight realizes that the gun has been sabotaged and tries to take on Deadpool on his own. In this hallucination, Deadpool accuses them of spending too much time performing their vigilante duties and ignoring friendships. Moon Knight tells Deadpool that his head is not in the right place. As Moon Knight kicks Deadpool in the face, Deadpool asks him to do it again, as he likes the pain. In a moment of lucid clarity, Deadpool tells Moon Knight that all the villains have teamed up to take on all the heroes, and that's what he's going to do next. As Moon Knight stops to hear Deadpool out, Deadpool stabs the distracted Moon Knight, but whispers something in his ears. The dying hero warns Jessica Jones that he knows where Deadpool is headed to next, and asks her not to go alone, but to get the whole team of heavy hitters with her. Deadpool's hallucinating again, and this time he's surrounded by Tony Stark, Night Nurse, Hank Pym, and Mr. Fantastic, who are helping him, telling him that they have a cure for him. In reality, though, we see the Mad Thinker and Orin Zola performing a procedure on Deadpool. As the Mad Thinker wonders whether the Red Skull realizes what he's doing, Zola says that they mustn't question their leader, as he's almost successful in achieving something that the villains have been trying to accomplish for so long. As the Avengers storm the location, Captain America confirms they're in the right place with Jessica Jones. Black Panther notices a table stained with fresh blood as they're confronted by Deadpool, who's now fused with Ultron. Age of Deadpool. Age of Deadpool. Deadpool hallucinates yet again of being stuck in a cyborg fighting tournament where he's duking it out with hardened robots. As a Shang-Chi robot attacks the cyborg, Ultron, merged with Deadpool, throws him away to the side. Then Iron Man attacks Deadpool and is torn in half as Deadpool asks for his forgiveness and wants him to know that he understands he's not attacking with malice but is forced to fight. The battle ends with a merry tune, resounding Deadpool's victory. This in stark contrast with the grim and violent reality. Strewn across the room are the corpses of the Hulk, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Vision, Iron Man, Captain America, and Scarlet Witch. Deadpool is encased in Ultron armor, holding Jessica Jones by the throat as Cable pleads with Deadpool to let her go. He asks Deadpool to stop, stating that while he admits he's insane, this can't be what he wants. Deadpool lets the team know that what he wants has nothing to do with what he's doing. As Jessica Jones dares him to get on with it, Deadpool snaps her neck, throwing her aside. Kate Bishop cries out her name and stretches a bow. Cable apologizes for failing Deadpool as he'd sought their help. Deadpool tells Cable that he's out of his depth, as are the others. Kate asks Cable to keep Deadpool talking and still so that she can hit him with an arrow. Deadpool catches the arrow just before it hits him as he questions whether hitting him with an arrow is their best defense. Deadpool then directs the arrow straight at Cable, taking him out. As Cable realizes this is the end of his timeline, the arrow explodes, creating a huge explosion. Deadpool ponders whether the exploding arrow might have taken him out before he shoots Kate Bishop with an energy beam. As Misty tries to take him out from behind, Deadpool vaporizes her. Taking her out and looking down at her burnt corpse, he makes a reference to the iconic line from Star Wars, asking whether she is Aunt Beru. Deadpool then takes off his Ultron helmet, saying that he can't breathe, as the helmet comes off with Deadpool's very head being torn off. As Deadpool looks at the mess he's made, he wonders now who will stop him, as the Avengers have been taken out. Gwenpool ambushes the Tinkerer, who is informing the Red Skull that Deadpool has been modified and will be able to take on the Avengers easily. He asks the Red Skull to give him the Hawaiian Islands in return, that he plans to use as his lab for his future experiments. She asks him whether he has the time to answer some burning questions that she has. In another one of Deadpool's hallucinations, he's playing hide-and-seek with the Power Pack, Ms. Marvel, Moon Girl, and Devil Dinosaur. As he finds everyone, one by one, the focus shifts back to reality, where Deadpool is standing over the corpse of Devil Dinosaur with blood-stained katanas in both hands. As the onlookers gasp in horror at the scene that they've witnessed, saying that the Power Pack were just a bunch of kids, as they turn to Deadpool, asking whether he realizes what he's done. Turning to face the massacre he caused, Deadpool is glad for the first time ever that he doesn't remember. Gwenpool tortures and questions the Tinkerer, asking him what he's done to Deadpool. The Tinkerer sings like a canary, telling her that it wasn't him, but some of the supervillains who have banded together and they're using post-hypnotic suggestions, which is an advanced brainwashing technique to get him to do their dirty work. Gwenpool tells him that he's going to tell her how to break Deadpool's mind control, and then she'll hurt him. But if he doesn't cooperate, he's gonna get hurt worse. Deadpool takes out the rest of the heroes, as he hallucinates he's on trial and asks for his attorney Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. In reality, he's bashing in Daredevil's head with the masked man's own billy clubs. He also hallucinates that he's in a street race with Ghost Rider and ends up killing him in real life. He also hallucinates that he's solving a crime with Sherlock Holmes, but in reality kills Ant-Man by burning him with a magnifying glass, acting as a prism refracting bright light. As he takes out Nova, he's ambushed by Gwenpool and they start bantering. Gwenpool tells Deadpool that she's trying to help him and needs Deadpool to calm down, so that she can break his mind control. Deadpool says that's something a cheap variant cover might say. They continue to fight, and Deadpool stabs her. In her last dying breath, She tells Deadpool the phase to reverse the brainwashing and tells him what was going on and how the villains have used him as a pawn. Gwenpool asks Deadpool to avenge the dead heroes, and Deadpool, now with lucidity, decides to go after the villains. Heroic villains. Deadpool's hacking away at the Reavers and wonders how the group serves as a reminder to his past self, as they're two parts of the same person. Deadpool admits that their robotic and human parts might sometimes be confusing, and the only option then is to separate the two halves and start anew. Then he sets off to kill the Atlantean villain Atuma by capturing him in a net and throwing him into the sea. He also takes on the Enforcers, who are protecting the Crime Master, and ends up killing everyone. As the villains turn to the Red Skull seeking guidance as Deadpool is hunting them down, the Red Skull assures them that while it's true that they have lost Deadpool as an asset and he's broken out of his mental conditioning, he has a plan, as he's already sent someone who will take him out, someone with a bloodlust greater than that of Deadpool's. Deadpool faces the deadly force of Carnage in a heated battle at a train station. He looks at his watch and tells Carnage that he's got him at the exact spot he needed Carnage to be at the exact moment. As Carnage tries to attack Deadpool, a train passes by loudly, causing distress to the psychotic symbiote. Deadpool takes the opportunity to grab the host Cletus Cassidy from the parasite, grabbing him by the hair and bashing his head to a train, making it explode while his brains splatter across the windows. Then he takes out the symbiote with a grenade, saying that someone with that much blood on their hand doesn't deserve to live. Deadpool then proceeds to systematically take out all the big bads of the Marvel Universe. He kills Arnim Zola by shooting him in the face. Kang gets his head chopped off, his brains on display. He kills Mysterio by pumping gasoline in his helmet and burns Dr. Octopus's head. A dead Wilson Fisk is seated at his chair in his office, a machete sticking out of his chest, while Deadpool battles Bullseye and Batroc the Leaper. As Deadpool says they don't need to fight anymore as the person they were supposed to protect is dead, Bullseye responds that Fisk was just a small fry, and that there's a lot of villains willing to pay good money for taking Deadpool out. Batroc the Leaper adds that Deadpool has stirred up quite a bit of commotion, and that they'll be rich after killing him. Deadpool plants seeds of suspicion among the duo by telling them that he would have taken out their partner if he was in their shoes, in order to keep the entire loot for himself. The two villains look at each other in suspicion, wondering whether they would betray each other. Deadpool takes advantage of this moment and shoots at the duo. This prompts Bullseye to say that slowing down in the middle of battles to make smart remarks is his weakness, while throwing a sai attached to a chain at Deadpool, which he blocks with his forearm. Deadpool replies that Bullseye's weakness is that he has a target drawn on his forehead and proceeds to blow his brains out. As Batroc thanks Deadpool for helping him out by getting rid of Bullseye, Deadpool throws him out of the window and he crashes onto the roof of a cab, falling to his death. Deadpool then takes out villains like Baron Zemo by impaling him with his own sword, the Absorbing Man, aka Carl Creed, by crushing him under a wrecking ball and decapitating Green Goblin with a string pulled across two windows. While public opinion around Deadpool changes, with people hailing him as a hero who's avenging the Avengers and exacting revenge for the brutal murder of their favorite superheroes like Spider-Man and Thor, Deadpool suffers from his guilty conscience as he realizes that he is the cancer himself. Deadpool sneaks inside Magneto's lair, where Magneto's engaged in a conversation with Dr. Doom. Doom tells the mutant that Deadpool is not to be taken lightly, and it might not be a great idea to call him into the lair and face him alone. Magneto responds that it wasn't his intention to do something like that, and Doom must have misinterpreted his intentions. Doom tells Magneto that he's retreated to another realm for the time being. Abomination has gone into hiding as well, but Magneto's invited Deadpool into his lair. Doom says that he initially thought it was a ruse to kill him, but seeing Magneto that drunk, he's not sure Magneto can do that. Doom bids farewell to Magneto and tells him that he's a fool if he decides to die like that. As Deadpool prepares to kill Magneto, Magneto hands him a flash drive with all the information about the Red Skull's whereabouts, and that he's hiding along with all his loyal followers. Deadpool asks him why he teamed up with people like the Red Skull, Abomination, and Doom. Magneto responds that he tried to bargain with the villains to save as many mutants as he could. He realized that there would be necessary sacrifices, but he never realized it would go that far. He says that's why he called Deadpool to his lair, so that he can finish it and set things right. When Deadpool asks Magneto how things can be right when he has the blood of the X-Men and the Young Mutants on his hands. As he leaves, he tells Magneto that it's their punishment, and they'll have to live with the consequences of their actions. Deadpool attacks the castle the Red Skull was hiding in, laying waste to everyone, knocking down the doors with a cannon. As Crossbones and the Taskmaster stand guard, Crossbones tells the Red Skull that they should move to a safer location. The Red Skull says that is not gonna happen. Deadpool storms the castle and proceeds to kill everyone who sought refuge there. He then storms into the throne room, and Crossbones, looking at Deadpool's tattered state, says that he'll be really easy to kill. The Taskmaster decides to stay out of the fight, growing a conscience, saying that they all deserve what's coming for them. As Deadpool and Crossbones get involved in a gunfight, the Red Skull snaps the Taskmaster's neck, killing him, while Deadpool kills Crossbones by stabbing him through the neck. As Deadpool charges at the Red Skull, he begins his evil guy monologue, and Deadpool decapitates him with the Taskmaster's shield. As the Red Skull asks him what he's trying to achieve by all these killings, Deadpool just tells them that he's not looking for redemption, but just wanted to kill all of them, and if they don't die, he'll come back and kill them over and over again. With this, he leaves the Red Skull to die, saying he's glad there are no heroes left, as what he's about to do is not heroic. Deadpool kills Deadpool, bound in leather. Buckle in for the weirdest introduction to a character ever. In a dirty kitchen, a mysterious being enters holding Deadpool as he tells him that what he's about to do would make his stomach churn. However, given his absolute lack of a gastrointestinal system, it wouldn't really affect Deadpool. The mysterious being is revealed to be a member of the evil Deadpool Corps, clad in black leather. Leather-clad Deadpool tells Deadpool he's not heartless, as Deadpool quips that he doesn't have a heart either. He tells Deadpool that he hopes he realizes why he's doing what he's about to, as Deadpool sarcastically replies he relates to his psychopathic motives. Leather-clad Deadpool presses the timer on a microwave, places Deadpool inside, saying he's furthering the cause, but will regret it someday. Deadpool, in a last-ditch attempt, says that his striking features, as well as the appliance's warranty, will be void. As leather-clad Deadpool closes the door and switches on the microwave, pondering how every other version he's killed has felt like he's murdered a part of himself. But he doesn't regret killing Deadpool at all. As Deadpool blows up inside the microwave with the radiation, leather-clad Deadpool says Deadpool was an abomination, as he never stayed dead and would have appreciated its permanent nature if his brains weren't splattered across the microwave. On Earth 616, main continuity Deadpool is fighting Ultimatum and his henchmen as he recounts the time he tried to warn the other superheroes of the giant robot's impending attack. None of the superheroes showed up. Deadpool is left alone to deal with the villain. Ultimatum picks Deadpool up in his robot hands and yanks him across the street. Deadpool notices a mother and child stuck on the street, cowering behind a car in fear. He asks them to stay put while he deals with the robot. Resolute to destroy the robot, Deadpool attacks it with his sword as he waits for the big guns to arrive. Help does arrive, but not in the way he was hoping, as a spaceship crashes onto the street, taking apart the robot along with it as it lands with a resounding crash. Satisfied, Deadpool asks the civilians to go back home as he notices the ship has a Deadpool symbol on its bow. He realizes the ship is B. Arthur, belonging to the Deadpool Corps, comprising alternate versions of Deadpool from other universes. As Deadpool's alternate versions gather on top of the crashed ship, he quips about how he doesn't need them anymore, as he's part of the team of superheroes now. Dogpool jumps up to greet him and licks Deadpool's face. Deadpool recognizes three of them, Kidpool, Dogpool, and Lady Deadpool, and asks the others for their identity, as they say they're Deadpool as well in unison. Deadpool calls them Golden Age Gas Mask and Mr. Pulp Hero, and turns his attention to Lady Deadpool, asking her why they've traveled all the way to Earth 616 to meet him. Lady Deadpool tells Deadpool that they weren't sure he'd still be alive, because she believes they're being hunted. Deadpool asks her who's targeting them, and makes a joke about using the formal whom if a villain like Thanos is after them, and who if it's a small-time villain like Angar the Screaming. Having none of Deadpool's immature need for attention, Lady Deadpool tells Deadpool that they need to keep moving, as Deadpool tries reasoning with her that he has people counting on him, and that it would be irresponsible of him to leave. He's waiting for the Avengers or the Fantastic Four or the X-Men to show up so that he can boast about defeating Ultimatum. Kidpool reminds Deadpool that none of the superheroes are going to pay enough attention to him, as Deadpool, with hunched shoulders and an air of defeat, realizes Kidpool is right. As they're getting ready to leave, one of the Deadpool variants, Golden Age Deadpool, is zapped and killed by leather-clad Deadpool, who arrives on a glider and attacks the Deadpool Corps. As main continuity Deadpool tries to counter leather-clad Deadpool's attacks, Dogpool and Kidpool realize they're done for. Deadpool makes fun of leather-clad Deadpool as he slices through his glider, breaking it. Leather-clad Deadpool falls to the ground as Deadpool sneaks up on him from behind, saying that when it comes to killing, he accepts no replacements. Leather-clad Deadpool's body slides, saving himself from Deadpool's blade. He then sneaks up behind Deadpool and drives his chainsaw through his body, asking Deadpool not to move, as he'll be dead soon. Seeing this, Dogpool attacks and is instantly vaporized by leather-clad Deadpool's ray gun. As Kidpool tries to go help Dogpool, Lady Deadpool stops him, saying it's too late, as leather-clad Deadpool stands over the dog's dead body. Deadpool, now regenerated, attacks leather-clad Deadpool again, this time holding down his hands and calling him out for killing a dog. Deadpool tells leather-clad Deadpool that while they may be doppelgangers, they're nothing alike, but their voices are the same, as he talks into leather-clad Deadpool's voice recognition wristwatch, asking for half a body slide. As a result, leather-clad Deadpool is literally split in half as Deadpool picks up his anti-regeneration gun and shoots him with a ray, pulverizing him. Lady Deadpool calls out to Deadpool, saying they must leave as there are other Deadpools. She tells him that they're in a state of war, a suicide war, as Deadpool boards their ship and tries to console Kidpool, Deadpool, who's mourning Dogpool's death. Kidpool tells Deadpool that he should have been in place of Dogpool, as Deadpool tries to assure him that none of them needed to die. Realizing he's not good at consoling, he seeks reassurance from the Deadpool Corps. As one of the members tells him that all Deadpool variants have died, Deadpool tries to make sense of the dire situation they're in. The Watcher, wearing a foam finger with Deadpool's crest and a number 1 scrawled across it, intervenes, saying he saw the massacre of the Deadpools of all the universes, as Deadpool wonders why someone would go out of the way to target him for being nothing but a funny guy and an easily dismissible character. The Watcher tells him that the battle to end all of existence has started, and that Deadpool is at the center of it all. Deadpools galore. Deadpool addresses a gathering of evil Deadpools as he says he's human, considering him otherwise would be a mistake. He further says that oftentimes he's so busy with the cause he forgets to tell his loyal followers how much he loves them and wants to express his gratitude, not in the way one expresses it for receiving gifts on Christmas, but genuinely and from the bottom of his heart. Deadpool dons a sash containing images of his kills. Deadpool then announces that they have a traitor in their midst, is providing intel to their alternate versions in the Deadpool Corps. He confesses that he's impressed by the traitor who's brave enough to oppose Deadpool on his turf. He asks the traitor to come clean and promises to let him go if he does so willingly. Failure to do so would mean death for all of the members of the evil Deadpool Corps. Beard of Beastpool is targeted as he tries to plead his case seeking justification for suspecting him. Evil Deadpool holds a gun to his head, telling him he's nervous and that letting due process take its course would be letting Beastpool off easy. He shoots Beastpool straight through the head as he comments on how irksome the constant buzzing was. Deadpool welcomes evil Deadpool into the fold, telling him that undercover agents have located the Deadpool Corps' base of operations. Deadpool brings news that some members of the Deadpool Corps are making their way there, and that evil Deadpool's multiversal version is also with them. As the Deadpool Corps travel across the multiverse, making their way to the base, Deadpool worries about the condition of their spaceship as it sustained some damage during the journey. He asks the Watcher to continue his story of how he believes Deadpool created the universe and quips about being omnipotent. The Watcher tells him that the story is true, as there are multiple universes with multiple counterparts of Deadpool. While some are heroic, some bring about nothing but disharmony and death. The Watcher talks about Deadpool, who, after realizing he wasn't a real person but a work of fiction, took it upon himself to free himself and the other fictional characters of his universe by mercilessly murdering them one by one. Deadpool even went as far as murdering literary characters because he realized they were the inspiration behind creating superheroes. While Deadpool thought his murder rampage would force the creators of his universe out of hiding, nothing he did worked, and he failed to find out the real curators. Exhausted, he came to the realization that he must be the origin point, and that he willed the universe into existence. In doing so, he inevitably put a bounty on himself and his multiversal variants. Deadpool admits there's some truth in the Watcher's story, as it seems quite plausible. Suddenly, Deadpool Pulp shouts out to the others to hold on to something as the B. Arthur makes yet another crash landing in a theme park. Deadpool, who fell over during the rough landing, is visibly annoyed, as Lady Deadpool calls out to him to introduce him to the others. Deadpool comments on the conspicuous base of operations of the Deadpool Corps, as the Watcher points out that the other Deadpools are hiding in plain sight to fight against their very own nature every day, saving themselves from their most formidable enemy. Deadpool asks Lady Deadpool why the Watcher is so invested in the Deadpools, as he comes off as a fanatic. Watchers aren't generally so invested in individual lives as much as he is. The Watcher points his foam finger in the air, proclaiming that he's supposed to be neutral, but through intense observation of all the Deadpool variants, he became fascinated with the regenerating degenerate. The Watcher further says that when Deadpool started killing his way across the universe and the multiverse, he decided to make his presence known and play a more active part in Deadpool's story. Deadpool quips that the Watcher has been observing Deadpool for so long that he's gone crazy, as Lady Deadpool concurs. Deadpool admits that he's stressed out just by being himself and would probably lose his marbles if he had to watch his life unfold in front of his eyes. As they enter a circus, Deadpool asks the Corps how the mysterious assailants are killing them off so easily given their regenerative capabilities. Deadpool Pulp tells him that some Deadpool variants don't have the power to regenerate, and even if they do, their enemies are armed with special weapons and strategies to bypass that. Kidpool adds that they've witnessed universal acid, nanotech that eats flesh, cauterization beams, and muta-regenerative overload grenades, as Lady Deadpool pulls the curtain back on a horrifying sight as Deadpool guesses all of the stated methods have been used. Lady Deadpool shockingly realizes they've been made, as Motorpool calls out with what's left of his dying breath. Lady Deadpool tells Deadpool that Motorpool was their repairman. Kidpool inadvertently sets off a booby trap, and the Corps try to flee to safety. Kidpool dies in the resultant explosion, as the others are thrown clear as the circus goes up in flames. Deadpool gets up to see evil Deadpool, along with other members of the evil Deadpool Corps, telling Deadpool that they're the creators of the universe, who now need to die, and that he needs to choose a side. Deadpool tries reasoning with him, offering him the chance to talk it over chimichangas. Offended at the fact that the evil Deadpool Corps don't like Mexican food, Deadpool says evil Deadpool would be the first to die. Pandapool appears out of nowhere, attacking the members of the evil Deadpool Corps as the two factions start fighting. Lady Deadpool fights Spiral Pool, telling her how they're both the only women Deadpools, and that one of them needs to die. Otherwise, the writers will have a field day writing jokes about catfights and furthering the stereotype that women don't get along. Cesspool attacks Pandapool, eating away at the bear's flesh. Deadpool Pulp fights Wolverine Pool as 616 Deadpool goes head-to-head with evil Deadpool, calling him out for his bad breath. The Watcher turns to the readers, asking us all to witness the war that's not just against Deadpool's foes, but against his true nature. As he's making a big speech, both 616 Deadpool and evil Deadpool ask him to intervene. Main continuity Deadpool realizes the Watcher has been double-crossing him all this time, and he goes to confront him after tossing evil Deadpool aside. Seeing a furious Deadpool approach him, the Watcher asks him to see his side of the story, as he's expected to choose one Deadpool faction when he thinks that all Deadpools are equally cool. Deadpool accosts him for not taking his side, as he's trying to save the multiverse. The Watcher tells him he's not so sure it's as black and white as Deadpool says it is. Suddenly, it rains blood as Wolverine Pool holds Deadpool Pulp's mutilated and beheaded body on his claws. Deadpool retaliates by knocking evil Deadpool to the ground, intent on taking him out. Evil Deadpool says he's on a suicide mission, as he's made peace with death. Galactus Pool arrives as they get ready for another showdown. Galactic proportions. As the Watcher recaps Deadpool's treacherous journey of killing the Marvel Universe, going after the Ideaverse next and eventually realizing he's at the center of it all, prompting him to hunt down and slaughter every version of himself in existence, he's harshly brought back to reality by Earth 616 Deadpool, who asks him to witness the unfolding events of Galactipool's quest to end the world. As Galactipool towers over main continuity Deadpool, Lady Deadpool, Wolverine Pool, Spiral Pool, and Pandapool, evil Deadpool admits that his team isn't playing fair by bringing in Galactipool to the fore. But in the grand scheme of ending all of life, it doesn't really matter. Main continuity Deadpool attacks evil Deadpool, kicking him in the face, disfiguring his jaw. He strangles evil Deadpool as the maniacal patchwork variant tells Deadpool to stop acting like a do-gooder. Deadpool tells him he's trying to save the universe, which automatically makes him noble. Evil Deadpool tells him that he should just give up and die, as Deadpool squeezes his neck harder and jams his finger in his eye, squishing it. He then drops him to the ground, telling him to stop whining as his regenerative factor will kick in soon. He then proceeds to shoot him in the head, as the other Deadpools are busy fleeing for their lives from Galactipool, who's devouring the world slowly. Lady Deadpool is attacked by Cesspool, who's almost instantly sucked in by Galactipool. She's holding on for her life and asks for help in escaping from Galactipool. The Watcher uncharacteristically extends his hand, pulling her away. He explains to a shocked Lady Deadpool, aka Wanda Wilson, that he regrets staying unbiased throughout the conflict, but realizes that he must choose a side as she's his favorite Deadpool and he can't let her die. Lady Deadpool walks away, admitting she might have once regarded the Watcher's actions weird, and the two walk toward Deadpool as she's resolved to make sure his life-saving actions amount to something. Lady Deadpool and the Watcher witness Deadpool kicking the lifeless body of evil Deadpool, who's now been turned into pulp. She asks him to join her as they're running out of time. With a sigh, he leaves evil Deadpool, asking him to stay put as Lady Deadpool yanks on a chain attached to her secret armory. She tells Deadpool he should be equipped with weapons and asks for help opening up the heavy door to the armory. 616 Deadpool refuses as Lady Deadpool tells him she needs Pandapool's help as he's the stronger one. Spiral Pool attacks them out of nowhere, and before she can finish a sentence contemplating which arm to use to finish them off, she's sliced in half by Pandapool, wielding the door and chain to the armory. As Deadpool comments on the goriness and asks Pandapool to remind him to hurl his guts out once he's eaten, Lady Deadpool calls out to them as they enter the armory. As Lady Deadpool is handing over weapons to Deadpool, he's sad about the reality of Deadpool's killing each other and calls it a waste. Deadpool exits the armory with an ungodly amount of guns and weapons as they face Galactipool once again. Deadpool tells Lady Deadpool that the weapons won't be of any use against Galactipool. Lady Deadpool sees Wolverine Pool approaching and tells him the weapons will work against him definitely. Deadpool throws a bomb at Wolverine Pool as it explodes, and flesh-eating insects consume his flesh, leaving only his skeleton behind. Deadpool notes how he needs to be reminded to vomit again as he witnesses Wolverine Pool get eaten alive and compliments the unique weapons he's been handed. He turns to Lady Deadpool, questioning her as to why only he'd need the weapons, as he thought they were going after the villain together. Lady Deadpool doesn't say anything, but kisses the Watcher on his lips, surprising him as Deadpool and Pandapool look on in confusion. She then runs toward the Bea Arthur, and Deadpool asks where she's headed to and why she kissed the Watcher. The Watcher sadly answers that she's simply fulfilling her part in the fight and putting off the inevitable, as Deadpool needs to leave soon along with the Watcher in order to save the multiverse. She reaches the cockpit of the spaceship, rigging its engines to blow up on impact, and readies herself to take down Galactipool. Deadpool. Lady Deadpool flies the spaceship straight into Galaxipool's head as it explodes. With resounding roars, Galaxipool's world-ending quest comes to a grinding halt. Deadpool and Pandapool helplessly watch in shock as the Watcher covers his eyes, realizing Lady Deadpool sacrificed herself. Deadpool asks the Watcher what they'll do next as Lady Pool is dead. The Watcher tells him that they need to travel to Deadpool's home universe, but wonders how as the B. Arthur is defunct now. As they're strategizing, evil Deadpool, having regenerated, tells them they're not going anywhere and that Lady Deadpool's sacrifice was in vain, as their mission to stop Deadpool will remain unaccomplished. With a smirk, Deadpool tells him that things are looking up, prompting evil Deadpool to look up to the sky as Galaxipool's giant robotic head comes crashing down on him. Deadpool then turns to the Watcher, asking him how they'll take the fight to Deadpool. He warns the Watcher to keep his characteristic way of talking in riddles in check, as the Watcher tells him that there exists a nexus of all realities in every multiverse. Although it had come at a great cost, they can use the Nexus to get to the enemy and take him down. He further says that the Nexus looks different in each version of the universe. While the Watcher says that in some worlds, the Nexus is located deep within the Everglades. In others, it's smack dab in the middle of the Baxter Building, and on others still, it's in an oasis in the Sahara Desert. He holds up his hands using his cosmic powers to open a portal transporting Deadpool, Pandapool, and himself to the Nexus on Earth 616 in the Savage Land. Deadpool expresses his dissatisfaction with the location of the Nexus as the three move through the forest carefully. They arrive at a clearing as the Watcher shockingly realizes the Nexus has been drained dry. Deadpool asks the Watcher whether it's the end of the line for them, but the Watcher reminds them that using the Nexus comes at a great cost. A voice calls out, saying they need not pay the great price to stop the apocalypse, as Deadpool the Duck, Deadpool Dinosaur, along with Moonboy and Deadpool, make a dramatic entrance expressing their intent to stop Deadpool. End of the line. As Deadpool goes head-to-head against Deadpool the Duck, Pandapool faces DEADPOOL, aka Destructive Engine of Assassination, despite Panpygoptosis obsessed with opponent liquidation, and Moonboy shoots at Deadpool from atop a Deadpool dinosaur that makes no sense. Continuing on the wacky journey to the final boss fight, Deadpool holds Deadpool the Duck in a headlock, snapping his neck and lamenting what a delicious dish the Duck would have made. Pandapool destroys DADPOOL as Deadpool leaps up onto the dinosaur, riddling the reptile with bullets, making sure dinosaurs stay extinct and eliminating Moonboy. The Watcher begins his narration, calling on the readers again to observe and fear. He's cut off by Deadpool, who tells him that the readers can see the events unfolding in front of their very eyes and that we don't need the Watcher to narrate. Deadpool uses one of the special guns that Lady Deadpool provided him with from her armory and shoots at the corpses of the Deadpools he's just killed. Contemplating about the Deadpools he just fought, he says the universe either has a twisted sense of humor or that he's hallucinating the entire thing. The Watcher points out that if Deadpool believed he was the source of all creation, it could be possible that he's created these Deadpools to further his cause. Deadpool scratches his head, saying it's the crisis of infinite Deadpools, as the Watcher agrees and tells Deadpool that if his variant can shape reality, so can he. Deadpool tells the Watcher that he's not good at the whole creation gig, but is adept at killing. The Watcher tells him that he'll get the chance to take down his multiversal homicidal counterpart and asks him to prepare himself, as he'll be sending Deadpool to the enemy's universe. Deadpool asks the Watcher how he'll transport them, as the Nexus has been broken beyond repair, and according to the Watcher, it'd take a great sacrifice, and Deadpool is a little low on that at the moment. The Watcher holds up his hand, telling Deadpool that the cost of using the Nexus isn't his to bear, as ripping open 616's Nexus of all realities would require cosmic energy of great proportions. Emanating a blinding light, the Watcher tells Deadpool that he's learned a lot from observing him, and that he'll accept his fate regardless of what happens next with the flamboyance of Deadpool. He asks Deadpool to save the multiverse, as Deadpool and Pandapool witness the Watcher exploding into cosmic energy, thereby restarting their Nexus. Both the Deadpools resolve to not let the Watcher and the rest of the Deadpool's deaths go in vain. The two of them walk into the Nexus, intent on exacting revenge for their fallen comrades. They arrive in Deadpool world and are surprised to see themselves surrounded by a bunch of other Deadpools. Deadpool and Pandapool ready themselves for yet another fight, but suddenly the other Deadpools start to explode and die. Pandapool and Deadpool take cover to save themselves from the attack. A voice calls out to them, asking them to stand up as they've got a war to win. Samurai Deadpool enters holding up his katana as he helps Deadpool to his feet. Grootpool says he's Deadpool, as Nightpool points toward Dreadpool's headquarters in the distance, intent on storming it and taking him down. Chibipool points out that Deadpool's on the hero's side. Tired of the exposition and without wasting any more time, they launch an attack. The good Deadpools slash their way through the evil Deadpools, eliminating Muchador Deadpool, Sharkpool, and every other imaginable mashed-up version of Deadpool. Lives are lost on both sides. As Grootpool's head is set on fire, Chibipool is squished by a large robotic hand, Nightpool is murdered by a sorcerer Deadpool, Samurai Pool is stabbed to death, and Pandapool is left with a gaping hole in its chest. Eventually, the only Deadpools left standing at Earth 616 is Deadpool, and Dreadpool's 616 Deadpool bursts into Dreadpool's castle and is shocked to see the floor littered with the remains of the evil Deadpool Corps. Dreadpool welcomes Deadpool and calls on Deadpool to die. Deadpool pulls out his sword, asking Dreadpool whether he's the guy causing all the mayhem and death. Dreadpool corrects him, saying they both are the end of the road and once they're dead, all is over. Deadpool asks him whether Dreadpool's quest has been some kind of suicide pact and whether the evil Deadpool Corps were willing participants in his cause. Dreadpool attacks him, pointing out that the real villain is the continuity that they've been forced to maintain and are trapped in, causing them endless pain and suffering for the sick cause of the reader's entertainment. Deadpool tells Dreadpool that he understands he's had it rough, but so has everybody. Dreadpool says that's exactly the point he's trying to make, as he reminds him that they've created the hell that they've been living in and need to be stopped. Deadpool asks Dreadpool why they can't just fix all of existence and conjure up a better life. Dreadpool reaches for Deadpool, telling him that his subconscious wouldn't let him do so, as he's way too traumatized. Deadpool shoves him away as Dreadpool falls to his knees, reminding Deadpool that he was stabbed through the chest with a chainsaw. Yet his tactical suit isn't tattered or bloody. Deadpool wonders whether he changed his costume, as Dreadpool says nothing in the universe changes. The continuity wouldn't accommodate it. Deadpool quips at the fact that things won't get any better makes it easy for him to get girls. Deadpool asks Dreadpool whether the knife jabbed in his chest was placed there while they were fighting, or Deadpool used his cosmic powers to conjure it up. Taking out the knife, he notices that Deadpool isn't letting himself heal, and admits he's had that thought too. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's in control of all existence. It just means he's stubborn. Deadpool points out that Dreadpool's regenerative factor has kicked in, forcing Dreadpool to realize he doesn't want to die. Dreadpool has a nervous breakdown, realizing that he killed the universe for nothing, as Deadpool explains to him that the important lesson is that he sees the errors of his ways and that eventually he could atone for his killings. As soon as he says this, he swings his sword, beheading Dreadpool, telling him that he doesn't get his forgiveness, as he killed all of his friends in cold blood. Deadpool reaches for the vial of acid in his pocket and pours it on the beheaded corpse of Dreadpool, telling him that they just might be nothing but two other voices in Deadpool's head, bringing the story full circle. As he's walking out, he wonders whether he actually did change his suit, but brushes away the thought, throwing his hands in the air as the last remaining Deadpool. He contemplates his existence as an insignificant part of the grand multiverse, and takes comfort in the fact that there might still be more Deadpools who are unaware of the multiversal Deadpool hunt. Deadpool wonders how he'd get home as evil Deadpool lurks in the shadows, intent on coming up with new evil ways to take him down. Marvelous verdict. This is probably one of the goriest Deadpool comic series and answers one of the biggest what if. Given all that Deadpool's been through, it's not too far-fetched to think he'd go on a rampage and overpower not only every single superhero in the Marvel Universe, but also classic literary characters. This comic series is a refreshing, albeit traumatic take on the beloved Merc with a mouth, featuring very little of his quintessential quips and juvenile jokes. Do let us know in the comment section below your thoughts on this series and what you'd like to see from us next.